Welcome back, beautiful people. I'm here with a story that's going to make your blood boil and your heart race, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just about music. It's about the very soul of artistic freedom being strangled by corporate boardrooms. Picture this. You're one of the most respected duos in hip-hop history. You've got Kendrick Lamar, arguably the greatest lyricist of our generation, ready to drop bars on your track. The verse is fire, it's clean, it's everything hip-hop should be. But then, your own record label tells you to kill it. Not because it's offensive, not because it's controversial, but because they're scared of optics. This isn't some dystopian nightmare, folks. This happened in 2025 to Clipse. Yes, those legends Pusha T and No Malice. And it exposes a cancer that's eating hip-hop from the inside out. Today, we're diving deep into how corporate censorship is threatening to kill the very essence of what made hip-hop the most powerful cultural force of our time. Let me paint you the full picture, because this rabbit hole goes deeper than Alice's Wonderland, and it's far more dangerous than any Disney tale. In June 2025, the hip-hop world got sucker punched with a revelation that should terrify anyone who believes in artistic freedom. Clipse, the Virginia Beach duo that gave us classics like Grinding and helped define the sound of the early 2000s, dropped the bombshell that sent shockwaves through the industry. Their album, Let God Sort 'Em Out, was ready to drop. Kendrick Lamar had blessed them with a verse for their track Chains and Whips. Everything was perfect, until Universal Music Group and their subsidiary Def Jam decided to play corporate puppet master. Here's where it gets absolutely insane, people. UNG didn't want to censor Kendrick's verse because it was explicit. They didn't object because he mentioned drugs, violence, or anything traditionally controversial in hip-hop. No, they wanted it gone because they were terrified of how it would look to have Kendrick Lamar and Pusha T on the same track. Think about that for a moment. We're talking about artistic collaboration being censored, not for its content, but for its participants. It's like telling Michelangelo he can't paint the Sistine Chapel because the Pope is having a dispute with another artist. Now, you might be wondering, why these two artists specifically? What's the common thread? Well, buckle up, because this is where our story takes a turn into legal warfare that threatens the very foundation of hip-hop culture. Both Kendrick Lamar and Pusha T are considered Drake's biggest rivals. Kendrick delivered that nuclear bomb called Not Like Us in 2024. And Pusha, well, let's just say, the story of Adidon is still giving Drake nightmares. But here's the kicker. Kendrick's verse on the Clipse track had absolutely nothing to do with Drake. According to Pusha T himself, quote, "None of the bars in Kendrick's verse could really be perceived as a shot or even a subliminal. So what was UMG really afraid of?" The answer reveals something far more sinister than simple corporate cowardice. Drake has filed a defamation lawsuit against UMG over Not Like Us, claiming it damaged his reputation by suggesting he's a pedophile. Now, I'm not here to litigate that case, but what I will tell you is that this lawsuit has created a climate of fear so intense that record labels are now censoring content that has nothing to do with the original dispute. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing the attempted murder of hip-hop's soul. And like any good murder mystery, we need to understand the victim before we can appreciate the crime. Hip-hop was born in the South Bronx as the voice of the voiceless. It was raw, unfiltered truth, spoken over beats that made your heart pound. From Grandmaster Flash talking about broken glass everywhere, to NWA telling the world about police brutality, hip-hop has always been about saying what others were afraid to say. The beauty of hip-hop battles, whether it's LL Cool J versus Ice-T, Nas versus Jay-Z, or Kendrick versus Drake, has always been that it's artistic combat. It's Muhammad Ali talking trash before a fight, but with poetry and beats. We understood that when rappers went at each other's throats lyrically, it was competition, not criminal conspiracy. But now we have artists trying to weaponize the legal system to silence their competitors. Drake's lawsuit isn't just about one song. It's attempting to rewrite the rules of rap battle culture entirely. Let's talk about what happened when Clipse refused to bow down to UMG's censorship demands. Pusha T called their demands stupid. And honestly, that might be the understatement of the year. For a month, they negotiated. For a month, UMG tried to get Clipse to ask Kendrick to censor his verse or remove the track entirely. And for a month, Clipse said absolutely not. You know what happened next? UMG released them from their contract. Now, some might see this as a loss, but I see it as a victory. Because sometimes, you have to be willing to walk away from the table to maintain your integrity. And thankfully, Jay-Z's Roc Nation was there with open arms, ready to let them release the album exactly as intended. But here's the scary part, people. Not every artist has the luxury of walking away. Not every artist has the financial stability or industry connections to tell a major label to go kick rocks. What happens to the up-and-coming artists who don't have Pusha T's leverage? This is where our story becomes truly frightening. Because what we're seeing isn't just one incident. It's the creation of a new paradigm where corporate legal departments get to decide what constitutes acceptable hip-hop expression. Imagine you're a young rapper trying to collaborate with different artists. Now you have to consider not just whether your bars are hot, but whether they might somehow conflict with your label's legal interests with completely unrelated artists. You have to think about optics and corporate liability before you think about artistic truth. Hip-hop has always been about authenticity, keeping it real, as we used to say. But how can you keep it real when corporate lawyers are ghostwriting your artistic decisions? And let's be brutally honest about something else. These corporate executives making these decisions, most of them couldn't tell the difference between a freestyle and a written verse if their quarterly bonuses depended on it. Yet they're being empowered to determine the boundaries of hip-hop expression? What Drake's lawsuit represents isn't just legal strategy, it's cultural assassination. If you can sue someone for hurting your feelings in a rap battle, then you've fundamentally misunderstood what hip-hop has always been about. UMG's own lawyers inadvertently revealed the absurdity of the situation. In their motion to dismiss Drake's lawsuit, they argued that Drake lost a rap battle that he provoked, and in which he willingly participated. They pointed out that Drake himself had criticized prosecutors for using artists' creative expression against them in court. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Drake signs petitions defending artistic expression when it benefits other artists, but then turns around and tries to monetize his own hurt feelings when he's on the receiving end. But here's what really keeps me up at night. If Drake's lawsuit succeeds, it creates legal precedent that could fundamentally alter hip-hop forever. Suddenly, every aggressive bar becomes a potential lawsuit. Every creative insult becomes grounds for damages. You know what's beautiful about hip-hop battles? They've always been self-regulating. The culture itself determines who won and who lost. The streets, the fans, the other artists, they're the judges. Not some corporate boardroom, not some legal team. When Nas dropped Ether on Jay-Z, nobody called their lawyers. When Ice Cube went nuclear on NWA with no Vaseline, nobody filed defamation suits. These battles elevated the art form. They pushed artists to be more creative, more clever, more lyrically devastating. But if we let legal warfare replace lyrical warfare, we lose something precious and irreplaceable. We lose the competitive spirit that has driven hip-hop innovation for 5 decades. And I'll tell you something else. Hip-hop has always been the voice of the marginalized, the oppressed, the people who couldn't speak their truth anywhere else. When you start legally constraining that voice, you're not just censoring music, you're silencing entire communities. But here's what gives me hope in this whole mess. Clipse didn't bend. They didn't break. When faced with corporate censorship, they chose artistic integrity over corporate comfort. Pusha T could have easily asked Kendrick to change a few bars, keep the peace, maintain the relationship with Def Jam. Instead, he said no. He said his art isn't for sale to corporate cowardice, and the hip-hop community needs to rally around this principle. We need to support artists who choose integrity over industry politics. We need to celebrate labels like Roc Nation that prioritize artistic vision over legal paranoia. Because make no mistake, this is a battle for the soul of hip-hop. And like all the great hip-hop battles, It's going to be won or lost by who can speak their truth more powerfully. So where do we go from here? How do we protect hip-hop's future while dealing with its present threats? First, we need to recognize that artistic freedom isn't just about the right to say whatever you want. It's about maintaining the cultural spaces where authentic expression can flourish. Hip-hop has always been that space. Second, we need to support artists who take principled stands. When someone like Clipse chooses integrity over industry comfort, we need to show up for them. Stream their music, buy their albums. Show the industry that authenticity pays. And third, we need to call out the hypocrisy when we see it. When artists try to weaponize the legal system against the very culture that made them rich and famous, we need to hold them accountable. Because here's the truth that some people don't want to hear. Hip-hop doesn't owe anyone comfort. It doesn't owe anyone safety from criticism. It doesn't owe anyone protection from artistic competition. What hip-hop owes us, what it has always owed us, is truth. Raw, unfiltered, sometimes uncomfortable truth, spoken with rhythm and poetry that makes our souls move. The corporate censorship of Kendrick Lamar's verse isn't just about one song on one album. It's about whether we're going to let boardroom politics determine street credibility. It's about whether we're going to let legal strategies silence artistic strategies. Maya Angelou once said that there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. Hip-hop has always been about telling those untold stories. The stories that make people uncomfortable. The stories that challenge power. The stories that speak truth to authority. When we allow corporate censorship to silence those stories, even when they have nothing to do with the supposed controversy, we betray everything that hip-hop has ever stood for. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let them kill the culture. Support the artists who choose authenticity over industry approval. Celebrate the labels that prioritize artistic vision over legal paranoia. And remember that every time you stream a censored version instead of the authentic one, you're voting for corporate comfort over cultural truth. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most important stories in contemporary hip-hop. If this resonated with you, show some love with that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our culture. Remember, in a world trying to silence authentic voices, the most radical act is still speaking your truth. Keep your head up, keep your heart open, and keep fighting for the culture.